me your name and tell us what your reactions were after hearing the presentation tonight. What are your thoughts?
My name is Jeff Vandercook. I'm a sophomore here at Texas A&M, and my thoughts are that Mr. Marek has a good idea, but he's placing it in the wrong direction. There's a big push for legalized immigration and things of that nature with the DREAM Act. However, I think we need to be facing more towards American high schools, because trade schools are overpriced. You spend $30,000 so that you can get a $14 an hour job, where you want to be on-the-job training anyway. So we need to establish certificate programs in high schools where you get your safety, you get your basic electrical, basic plumbing, whatever you feel you want to do internships like we do in college with the juniors from high school. They're 17 years old, they're summer before their senior year. Give them 3 months of work at $9 an hour. They decide they want to do it, they graduate with their certificate, then they hit the workforce in your $12, $14 an hour range, and they're not $30,000 in debt. They're not absorbing grants and scholarships that can be absorbed by kids at university, on a need basis, on immigrants' children that are using those scholarships and grants. And we fulfill our workforce with preferably English-speaking or bilingual, but trained and get in training, so you have safety training, trade training, and they're not set up on the wrong foot with this whole lot of debt, and they're paying taxes. They're already legal. They're citizens. You know what I mean? So that's like my big push, is to step away from putting money into immigration reform and the DREAM Act and focus on people that are already legal citizens that we can get into the workforce. If you're going to establish this alliance for Texas, you're basically unionizing the state. You can force reform, you can force wages. Then if you're going to work in the state, you're going to have these parameters. It's not, so to speak, in a union, but it's cooperation amongst the industry. So you get the same benefit across the board.
Okay, Jeff, can you mention again what you were saying about kids working for McDonald's, and because I thought that was a really good example.
Well, the big push Mr. Marek was saying was that teenagers in America can't compete with immigration labor. Whereas you have a lot of 19 and 20-year-olds that didn't make it into college. Sure, they may be GED and dropouts, but they're only making $7.50, $8.50 an hour working at McDonald's, fast food, or Best Buy, or something like that, doing their 32 hours a week, so they're not getting benefits anyways. So they're part-time employment under $10, make them full-time employment, give them $10, give them the insurance, and they can compete.
Do you think that they would be interested in those jobs?
I sincerely do. Granted, you go to a lot of inner city schools, construction may not be a big temple. You go to a lot of more agricultural-based high schools and everything around the country, you're going to get a lot of guys that grew up on the farm, on the ranch, doing these jobs that you're wanting to do anyways. Frame. Probably every teenager in rural America has put up a shed, a barn, something like that. They know how to swing a hammer, and the rest comes from time on the job. And like I said, you get them when they're 17 for 3 months out of the summer before their senior year, and you said, okay, hey, I want to do an apprenticeship, a 3-month intern apprenticeship for an electrician. Granted, they're a gopher, but you're only paying them $9 an hour, which is 50 cents an hour more than they were making at McDonald's. So you build your standards, you build your workforce, all in one boot. And we're in construction. If you want a strong building, you need a strong foundation. So you start them in high school with their trade schools, because chances are in America, by the time you're 16 or 17 years old, whether you've made the grade to go to college, whether you can afford to go to college, or whether you just have to drive to go to college. The type of guys that we're looking for in our industry, as far as manual labor, are the same guys that the U.S. military is picking up, and they're only paying them $1,000 a month. But what's the difference? Benefits. Yeah, they only get $300 or $500 every 2 weeks, but they have educational benefits, right? So we give them the education that they're looking for. I want to be an electrician. So you send them for 3 weeks certifiable schools as they're working, after high school, and they eventually progress over the next 3 to 5 years, and they can be a licensed electrician then, pulling whatever, I don't know what the going rate is for that profession, but they're upping their standard, and that's who we're looking for. We're looking for basically the same people the military are. To Texas A&M, but it's tax deductible, first of all. Give it to the high schools. Start an initiative. Make a statewide, state-governed safety protocol test. Your first year of construction in high school, you have to take a standardized state test. It's not governed by the high school, so keep it watered down. Right, it'll be like the SATs, but at a state level, and you get a certificate that says you are safety certified in the construction industry. In between your junior and senior year, you do a 9-week internship program. Say you have a job site with 10 workers, you put 2
students on it. They work as gophers. You know, they go here, they go there, they ask their questions, and they help on the load. I mean, they're high school students. You only got to pay them $8 an hour, and they think they made more than they would have anyways. And then their senior year, they have an initiative now. So 9 months down there, they can work towards that certificate, whether they want to be an intern or an apprentice for an electrician or a plumber, or they just want to go straight into framing afterwards. And not only that, you've scanned the job market. You've seen these students in action. You have their name on your books, and you can say, okay, I offer this guy a job. If he graduates high school, you've already upped your ante. You say you graduate high school, you come back, you have a job as a framer, $12 an hour. They're English speaking. They're high school graduates. They already have their safety training, and along the way, you can send them to as many 3-week safety courses, ethics courses, advancement in their own job field and trade school courses, and you start from the ground up. That's the initiative. And why not do, if you're a major corporation in Houston, pick 3 high schools in Houston, start an initiative, open construction programs, pour that money in. Like I said, it's tax deductible, right? And then see what you get. I mean, if you can't fix it here, you can't fix it nationwide. So, you know, start at home and spread it. You get this initiative working, you start bringing English-speaking, higher-paying people that are demanding more, ethically working, you'll get a better tomorrow. Well, we've already established the big picture of what we want to create, but you have to start in small increment. You have to, first of all, I said you start in your own front yard. So Houston probably has 45 high schools. Pick 3. Just start with 3 to see if this takes hold, see if this takes ground, see if there's interest in the 17-year-old population that you're aiming at. So what you do is you can't start the certificate programs right away. You can't start. What you can start with is you can start these summer internship programs, 9-week course. You go in this March, this May, if you want to start it that early. You go into these, find 3 high schools in Houston with construction classes and coursework, and then you go in and you talk to them. You pitch your bill. You pitch, what you want, and then you tell them, this is what I'm looking for. This is what I'm looking for. Now, what are you going to give me for it, right? And then you meet your work base then, and you pull, 10 guys out of each classroom, 30 guys. I'm sure you can find work for 30 guys on a low income level across the whole span of Houston construction, right? So you put them to work. They're 9-week program, 3 weeks framing, 3 weeks electrical, 3 weeks, you fill in the blank, heavy equipment, plumbing, whatever other type of trade they may be, they may be in tiling and carpeting, flooring, whatever that is. You find a company and you put them in, right? Now, the next school year they say, okay, hey, I spent this week, I did this, travels like wildfire, right? They catch on, and you make a deal with them. You say, okay, I'm looking for labor when you graduate. Key being, you graduate. I'm not going to hire you now, because otherwise a lot of guys will quit school for a $10 an hour job. So you say, when you graduate, you got a job. If you come back here and, they say they got interest in framing. Okay, well, after you graduate, come back, we'll talk about framing. All right? But then you put stipulations in that year, this is what you have to accomplish. All right? So you take a safety program. There's all kinds of online. There's seminars. There's so many ways that trade schools offer, a 2-week pitch, a 20-hour safety course that you can get a certificate from whatever place, right? So your company flips the bill for 10 of these guys to get this certificate. Maybe it costs $500 a person, whatever else, right? They graduate, they have their safety certificate. Now they're working for you. They're high school graduates. They're English speaking. You just upped the bar. So now you go to the Houston School Board and you say, look, I pulled 30 kids out of 3 high schools that have high dropout rates, and you pitch your demographics and what your statistics are, and of course you make it look good in your favor. But you say, look, I pulled 30 guys that would normally be working at McDonald's still, because you can even give the names and demographics. I'm sure they'll participate and say, look, these guys are working at McDonald's, movie gallery, whatever, Best Buy for $8 an hour. They spent a summer with this program, and then we gave them a goal to work for. And out of these 30, all 30 completed their goal, and now they're employed for $12 an hour. I want to institute this program throughout all your schools in Houston. Okay, what do we need to do? Well, we have to get the schools brought up to par on a standard. All right, they have to have this kind of equipment in their shop. Their teachers have to have this type of certification. Okay, so it's implemented over the next maybe 2, possibly 3 years, depending on funding, because budgets are getting cut right now. But we work it. The big thing is Houston, right? We need more people in the workforce, less people going to jail, right? Major metropolitan areas is a breeding ground for 19-year-olds going to jail. I mean, no work, idle hands are the devil's playground. You put them to work, you give them a paying job, you give them self-esteem, And then from there, once it's in and taken root, you can start your standardized testing with the state. You can say, okay, look, I took Houston. I increased graduation rate by 10%, because in a lot of your students that take your auto mechanics classes, your construction classes, your air conditioning classes, they do 3 years and they drop out when they're a junior, right? But now all those programs that would normally have dropouts in those type of areas that weren't going to college, they graduate. They're still not going to college, but they're graduated. So you got increased graduation rate for that city, all right? So now you compare Houston to Dallas and Austin, right? So then you go to the state school board and say, look, Houston works. Houston's the biggest growing area. Houston has these problems. It's got overcrowded schools. But look, we've brought up, these rates for this, that, and the other, and it's good for education. It's also good for America because we're building again. We're doing this. We're doing that. You bring it in Dallas. You bring it in Austin. You bring it in El Paso. You bring it down in Corpus Christi, San Antonio, all your major cities, right? You implement these. Now you have a statewide program. You have a statewide standardized test for that program. It's not no longer city-based, and you just spread like wildfire. And before too long, if Texas can say, hey, we're turning out more, trade labor than any other state in the country, they're going to say, well, what is Texas doing? Next thing you know, you got Oklahoma. They're on board. Georgia's on board. All these states with major metropolitan areas with high high school dropout rates, and high immigration rates for construction are wondering, what are they doing? What's the difference? Oh, well, we have a standardized program. I mean, they're not ITT Tech. They're not 30 grand in debt for being, for a $14 an hour job. You know what I mean? They're in a $14 an hour job and they're getting trained. And like I said, your workforce is going up because by going into major metropolitan areas first, you're going to get a large minority count. You're going to get your bilingual, Spanish Americans that are going to be on board. You're going to get, your Anglo and your African Americans on board. You're going to have an integrated workforce. It's no longer going to be walking onto a job site where, you got to have a translator to get on there. And these people are going to be legal. They're going to be tax paying. And like I said, they're going to be high school graduates.